Hey guys, and welcome to the first ever live stream discussion that I'm going to have, and hopefully the first of many other discussions. If this goes well, then I will be doing more discussions, hopefully, on other topics and stuff. Today's topic will be Titanic. So it'll be anything having to do with the movie, between the movie, the actual ship, the actual people that were on the ship. Um, so, if you're a big fan of the movie, if you're a big fan of the Titanic in general, then that's what this discussion is about. Like I said, hopefully, if this goes well, I'll do other topic discussions for other movies and TV shows, like 13 Reasons Why, possibly Smallville, other movies. I'll do anime, anything like that. So, the reason I wanted to do the Titanic for the first one is because I've been on somewhat of a Titanic kick lately, and I'm a big fan of James Cameron's movie from the 90s. Hi! Welcome to the live stream. Titanic discussion. If you're interested in the movie, the ship in general, or anything, that's what this discussion is about. Like I said, hopefully I'll be doing more in the future if this one goes well, of other TV shows, movies, events. I'll probably put polls up. I've got an amino as well for anybody that has amino. My amino is called Serenity's Shadows. So I'll be putting polls up on there and updates on there and anything. Like I said, the reason I wanted to do Titanic is because that's one of my favorite movies. So, and I've been on a Titanic hit lately. So, if anybody has any topic of discussion, we can go ahead and start questions that we can possibly discuss about the movie. Sorry, I got a little bit of a cold, and I am doing this on my phone, so if I do get a call or a text, it may interrupt the broadcast, but I will start it back up if it does. So, uh, this is like my second time broadcasting live, so, and the first one didn't go so well, so, because of crappy service or whatever. So hopefully this one goes better. So I'm hoping for more viewers, but I don't know if anybody else is going to join or questions to actually start the discussion. Uh, I know there. One reason why Titanic is big for me too is, again, the movie, big the tragedy behind it, and the movie actually got me interested in the actual ship. So, and there's a museum in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, that was built to look like a replica of about half the size of the original ship, which it is really, really cool. It starts from the beginning when the ship was built and takes you up through third class, up to first class, all the way through, talking about the people that were on the ship, their lives, and everything like that. And it's cool, you get a boarding pass, a quote unquote boarding pass, that has the name of an actual passenger on it. So at the end of it all, there's a memorial wall for those that died, and you get to see if your person lived or survived or died. And it's really cool, really interactive museum, and I've been about 4 or 5 times to this museum. That is how much I love that museum. Uh, how many times do I watch it? I don't have the DVD, so which really sucks. I only have the VHS. That's about 3 to 4 hours long, or whatever, however long the actual movie is, and the VHS set is actually split up into two parts. So the first part goes right up to the sinking, and then the second video takes up from the sinking up to the end. Uh, so I don't watch it as much as I want to, but I did just recently find it on YouTube. They do have it for rent and to buy on YouTube. I didn't have the money to actually buy it on YouTube because it's like $17 if you want it in HD. But if you want to rent it, it's $3.99 to rent it. And I actually just rented it and I got it for like 2 days. So I got to watch it at least twice within that time span. So I can end up uh, getting a little bit more info and stuff for the movie. And the it got really hard for a while, actually, to watch Titanic because a few years ago, a woman that was just like my second mom, I was watching Titanic around the sinking part, and my friend, her daughter, called me and said that she had passed away. So it got really hard to watch it up to that point, and I kind of stayed away from Titanic for a while because just that memory of that phone call really got to me every time I got to that certain part. So it's like, yeah, it kept me away from the movie for a while. But now I've been able to deal with it with the grieving process and everything. So I can actually watch the full movie now without a problem, except for the parts that still made me cry to begin with, like the band members playing Near My God to Thee. Every time I see that part or hear that song, it makes me cry. Even the last time I was at the museum, one of the people dressed up as I guess you'd say a maid on the ship. That's how the people at the museum dress. They dress as the crew members of the ship. And one of the maids actually played the song on a violin in the room that spoke about the musicians. And actually, they found a violin still intact at the wreckage site and put it in the museum. And she played as soon as she started playing. My eyes just started tearing up. And um, my boyfriend Death got to go through at that time with me. That was about my fifth time going through. But that time they had the movie costumes. So that was a big flippin' highlight. And I got to take pictures of all the costumes they had, plus the Heart of the Ocean necklace that they have on display. So that was really cool. I was going to go through it um, back in March because of St. Patrick's Day. They were doing a celebration to celebrate the Irish shipbuilders and the Irish passengers that were on the ship. Sorry, I got probably a little bit of an accent there. But I actually called them up, called the museum up and asked because I was planning on going sometime that month up while they were still doing the celebration. And I actually called them and asked, it's like, look, I've got a YouTube channel and I want to do a vlog because I love Titanic. It would get you guys free publicity. You don't have to sponsor me or pay me anything for sponsorship, but I love Titanic so much. I want to do a tribute video to Titanic. Is there a way I can come through the museum with my camera and vlog? Sadly enough, no photography in the museum, except for that one instance when the costumes were there, but that was only for certain rooms that had the costumes. Although somebody had originally told me that I could take pictures of all the costumes. And then someone upstairs said, no, only these certain rooms. But she let me get away with actually getting all the costumes. So, because she's like, oh, you already have the pictures, so go ahead. Go ahead and take the rest of the pictures. So that was a pretty neat highlight. So Rose's costumes, Jack's costumes, all of that. I got pictures of all of that. It was flipping awesome. Um, but like I said, Titanic is one of my big films. Especially, I think I was born in 1989, so about six or so when the movie came out. I remember my first time actually watching the movie with my mom, and the nude scene came up when he was drawing her, when he was drawing Rose, and my mom come up with the story that, oh, she's not really naked, she's just in a bodysuit. I'm like, my little childlike innocent mind believed her. Because when I got older, I'm like, I can't remember, believe I believed that it was a bodysuit and she wasn't nude. But, every time after that, my mom actually made me cover my eyes during that part. But I've basically been watching the movie since I was really little. And, every time I watch it, more and more noticeable things. The more I love it. Favorite scene from the movie? Oh Lord, you had to ask that. Um, mm, I know there's one. I have to say there's two favorite scenes. One that was a couple of deleted scenes are my favorites too, but from the actual movie, one definite one that would be my favorite would be when everybody is running around the ship trying to get to the lifeboats. She's trying to run back to save Jack, who's still handcuffed in the master arms office, and Cal grabs her and she spits in his friggin' face. And I applaud that scene every time because it's like, yes, yes, you finally got him back. Because I wanted to slap Cal and her mother throughout the whole friggin' film. Be like, back, frick off! um, so, needless to say, Cal and her mother, Rose's mother, is like my two least favorite characters in the film. But I'm trying to think of another scene that would be my favorite. I guess more of them bonding, like when they're on the ship and their little moment of the spinning contest, and also when he saves her from jumping. It's like that calmly trying to talk her back from the edge and try to pull her over, saying, "No, you got a purpose. You got to live. I know you're in trouble right now, but things are gonna get better." So because it's like it reminds me of all the crap I go through, and I know with my anxiety and a lot of other people deal with it, and watching that scene is like, yeah, I know I'm going through a lot of crap, but yes, there is meaning in life. Yes, it may be bad, but it'll get better. Especially because I have my daughter, so I have to think of her in the instance and like wonder what the situation would be if I was gone. So those are a few of my favorite scenes. The deleted scenes that are my favorite. Um, favorite characters. Mm, Jack. Jack is one of my favorite characters, of course. Basically, when I was little, I had a big crush on Leonardo DiCaprio. But one of my other favorite characters, I guess, would have to be Thomas Andrews, the one that built the ship or oversaw the building of the ship. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't show up much in the movie except for toward the end, but he is still that really nice, and he shows he cares for Rose and everything, and um, I'm trying to think of what my other character would be. This goes back to the probably Fabrizio, Jack's friend, but it only stems back to the deleted scenes because they actually had a couple of deleted scenes where Fabrizio and Tommy, the Irish steerage passenger that showed up in this um, show, the movie, they actually used to have more screen time in the movie, and it showed Jack and Fabrizio and Tommy hanging out down in the steerage area, minus all the other parts in the movie. And those deleted scenes in the movie was like, this would give us more reason to care when they died. Like, it would give more meaning to them if they had shown them more, and it does show them in the deleted scenes. Like, so Fabrizio and Tommy the Irish steerage passenger would have to be two of my other favorites because they're the lesser known characters, but after seeing the deleted scenes, actually made me like them more because it's like you do get a little bit more time with them. You do get a little bit more of their feelings in that. Um, so those are a few of my favorite characters. Molly Brown. Molly Brown would have to be another one of mine, played by the great Kathy Bates. Um, just because of that attitude and that fire and like that really go-to attitude. So Molly Brown would have to be another one of my favorite characters that I like in the movie. Um, try to really think of others. Like I said, my least favorite characters would be Cal and Rose's mother. And I know he was a real person, but Bruce Ismay, the owner of the ship, just because I know he's a real person, but it's kind of like when he's sitting there talking to Captain Smith about, oh, well, they see how magnificent she is, so now I want them to see how fast the ship is. And it's like, idiot, 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 no, no. Just knowing what we do now about the ship, that was probably one of the causes of the fact that it was going too fast, because Ismay taught the captain into um, making the ship go faster. So it's kind of like sitting there watching that character and it's like, idiot, 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 shut up, shut up, don't tell him that, don't tell him that. Um, Actually, I'm gonna have to go back to one of my favorite characters. I know he didn't show up much, but Murdoch. I think it was Lieutenant Murdoch, the one that ended up accidentally shooting Tommy, and the one that ended up committing suicide. In the parts that he did show up, it's like so many people give him flack because he was supposedly the one who committed suicide for shooting the people. But and he gets so much flack because he was the one that was on duty the night the ship hit the iceberg. But the thing is, most of the crew did not know how to deal with situations like the iceberg. So as soon as Murdoch said hard to port, turn left, try to turn around the iceberg, he he was just doing what he thought was right because they didn't have those kind of drills. They didn't tell them like, oh, if you see an iceberg, head it dead on, or keep your engine slow. There's iceberg warnings, blah blah blah. Uh, um, so Murdoch is one of those that gets so much flack, but uh, in truth, he was somewhat of a hero. So it's like I don't see why he gets as much flack as people give him. Um, and I do think part of the reason for the sinking was, again, the fact that it was going so fast. They didn't know the proper procedures in dealing with the iceberg, and the fact that there was a fire on board in I believe one of the boiler rooms that weakened the support system in that area, because that's exactly where the iceberg struck, was that weakened area. And also, I put the blame with Captain Smith a little bit because the day of the sinking, there was actually supposed to be a lifeboat drill. Yes, there weren't that many lifeboats because they thought quantity over quality, or they didn't think it was unsinkable. So why do we need so many? And everything. And there was actually supposed to be a lifeboat drill the day of the sinking, but the captain canceled it. So I feel like if they had done the drill and actually learned to, hey, fill the boats to capacity. That's another reason why so many died that night, because they weren't filling them to capacity. How big is the Titanic? Oh, Lord. I think they said it was bigger. Football fields, like standard football fields. I think they said it was about the equivalent of four of those, maybe bigger. Um, I'm trying to remember exactly how long it said. It was like, if you know how tall the Empire State Building is. Like, think of the tallest building in the world, which at the time was the Empire State Building. If you turned Titanic up, like long ways going straight up, it, I believe, was bigger than the Empire State Building. When you first go into the museum, they actually have a chart of the Titanic, like going straight up like that beside certain buildings, and I remember the Empire State Building being one of them, and I think it was just a few inches taller than the Empire State Building. So if you can think about how tall the Empire State Building is, and then put the ship going up and down, well, vertical, it would be about as big or a little bit bigger than the Empire State Building. I can't remember the exact specs of that. But of course, they did have the four funnels, which the fourth funnel was a dummy. It was a dummy funnel, and the other reason they put that on there was for looks. And then it was never lit. A lot of people depict that the fourth one was lit, but it was never lit. And I can't remember how far down it said. I think there was like from A to F or G level. And there's actually this game coming out that's called Titanic Honor and Glory, that is supposed to be, they're building an exact replica of the Titanic, and you'll be able to explore from the very top level to the very bottom level into steerage. And there is a game, and there is a storyline in the midst of all of that thing. But if I remember correctly, it went down from floor A, which is the highest level of first class, to level F or G, which would be down in steerage and where all the cargo and everything. I think steerage got 3 levels. F. Okay, so I think it went down to F. So it was like D, E, F was steerage. B and C was second class. Or, no, okay, no. E and F were third class. B and C and D were second class, and then A, B was first class. And they have a big grand staircase that went about 3 floors down. So A, B, C. So it took up the first 2 levels of first class, and then down into one of the levels of second class, if I remember, or both levels of second class, if I remember correctly. But it was long and it was very deep. A lot of the steerage area was was down below the water, which is really interesting. In the museum, they actually have a replica of the steerage third class corridors, and they are so flippin' small. You look on the movie, and they made them wider. They had to make them wider because of getting the equipment in there to film. But even James Cameron said it was small enough almost small enough for like 1 to 2 people to stand side by side. It was really, really, really cramped. But at the end of the corridor in the museum, they actually have a replica of some stairs with plexiglass behind it, and they'll have water shooting down to show, like the water flooding the third class and stuff like that, because it went down by the stern, so it went down by the front and went butt up in the air. Um, I mean, but if you can imagine, like, half the front half of the ship in the water and then the back half breaking in part. So, like I said, to answer your question, it was about as tall or a little bit taller than the Empire State Building, about long if you put it horizontal or vertical. But, so I'm trying to remember, and then the staterooms, I can't even remember how big the staterooms were. I know they had a replica stateroom in the museum that was, how many people die in the movie? A little over 1,500. Because, it said, according to old Rose at the end of the movie, 1,500 died that night. 7 were retrieved from the water. 7 out of 1,500. Okay, there was like about, I believe, over 2,000 people on the ship, passengers and crew included, and of course about 70% of the men died because, of course, of the women and children rule, and the fact that they weren't filling the lifeboat's capacity. But if I remember, the correct number was either 1,500 or a little bit over 1,500. There are some newspapers that actually say less than that died, like about 1,200 died, but the accurate number that I've always heard was 1,500 passed away in the movie and in real life. But like I said, that was mostly because people were still stuck on the ship, and they went into the water, so they ended up dying of hypothermia in the water while the lifeboats could. Because if I remember correctly, they did point that out accurate in the movie that only one lifeboat came back, but they had to switch the people over from that lifeboat to another lifeboat to fill that one up, and then end up going back for the passengers. So a lot of that time, there was about 2 hours, I think, from the time the lifeboats ended up going back. And there was actually one person that I know one person that actually did survive in the water for the 2 hours, was the chef, because he had drank so much alcohol during the sinking that the alcohol actually kept him warm enough to survive that 2 hours until the lifeboat came back and that they were able to get on the Carpathia. So, yes, and some of the people that sadly happened to die were babies, like mothers with babies that still couldn't get on the ship because they weren't filling the capacity. But yeah, 1,500 is what I remember correctly as the number of passengers that died. But that was mostly, like I said, because some were still on the ship, and then some were actually jumping into the water because they would rather jump into the water and try to swim away to the lifeboats instead of being sucked down in that suction when the ship went down. That scene for me is always hard to watch, because watching people jump from the ship, because it makes me think back to 9/11, September 11th, because there were so many videos of people jumping out of the towers just because they couldn't get out through the stairwells. And I've seen some of those videos, and I remember when it was happening, and I know that always made me cry. So whenever I watch that scene of people actually jumping into the water from the ship, it actually, that's one of the other parts that make me cry, because I go back and remember that part. Um, I'm trying to remember something else. Like I said, 7 people were saved from the water, 1,500 died, so that means the other thousand something, or actually, there might have been less than 2,000, because I actually do remember them saying that the number of rescued was about 700, over 700, 800, something like that. So there was probably less than 2,000 in the ship. I know my math is kind of screwed up right now, probably, but and I know I'm rambling, so I apologize for that. But I do remember the number of people being actually saved in the lifeboats being like 780 something. 787 or up to 800 actually being saved. Um, but of course, a majority of them were women and children that were saved. Um, and I think the only reason some of the men survived is because that like 10% of the men survived was because they had snuck into the lifeboats or they had been rescued out of the water because they had swam to the lifeboats after the fact. But I'm trying to think. From what I remember, because I have been doing somewhat been doing a little research and watching the videos and stuff, but I do remember 70% of the men died. A little bit higher percentage than that of the steerage or the third class passengers died. Not because they were locked down below like James Cameron showed. Um, that has actually come out to being a myth. They were actually not locked below. Um, the reason a lot of the steerage passengers couldn't get up to the boat deck was because it was so easy to get lost on that ship. So, especially if, like, one of the scenes depicted in the movie was a Greek couple, I believe, some foreign couple that couldn't read the sign saying which way to go. So, like, if you didn't speak English and you were confused at where to go and panic, you can't think straight and panic. Um, they ended up getting lost down in the corridors, and some of them did making it to the deck, but by that time the lifeboats were all gone. So that's why a lot of third class passengers died. I can't remember the percentage of second class passengers or the amount of the crew. Um, I wish I had actually written all this down, but and I don't want to search it up on my phone since that would interrupt the broadcast. But um, I think they said 60% of the crew went down. Most of them being men. Uh, a lot of the maids, of course, got shoved into the lifeboats. Of course, Captain Smith went down with the ship. Uh, and then, of course, we know one of the men that actually survived was Bruce Ismays because he jumped into one of the lifeboats. He snuck into one of the lifeboats, but so I'm trying. I know your question was how many lives were lost, but I'm just trying to remember that versus how many people were actually saved as well. Because, like I said, seem to remember that number being like 780 something or a little closer to 800 were actually saved. But I know for a fact they say 1,500 had died. But that was mostly, like I said, because they couldn't get to the lifeboats. They were still stuck on the ship. They died of hypothermia. Because, of course, not enough lifeboats and weren't filling into capacity. So, but it all could have been avoided. And even they cite the Californian, the other ship that was actually giving them the ice warnings, kind of at fault. And if I remember correctly, they ended up fining the crew of the Californian because after giving them the iceberg warnings and Titanic ignoring them and telling them basically, quiet, we can't be bothered with the ice warnings, and then Californian ended up shutting down their telegraphing and telegraphing area and everything. Uh, so nobody was there to get get the SOS warning. So I think that, and they were really, really close. So I think, if I remember correctly, they were fined for not coming to Titanic's aid because they had shut down their system. And that actually started something in 1913 or so, about the next couple years later, about mandatory 24-hour um, station people stationed 24 hours at their telegraphing signal office. Marconi, I think they were called Marconi operators. Um, they because of what happened to Titanic, they made it mandatory for people to be stationed 24 hours a day to watch to make sure no disaster like that happens again. They started iceberg patrols more often to be able to warn ships so that doesn't happen again. Uh, they actually started a thing where they had to carry the correct number of lifeboats and mandatory lifeboat drills as a result of what happened with Titanic. Um, I know I'm pausing a lot, and I'm sorry. And then I was like, I'm trying to remember. I know a lot of that was started because of Titanic. Nothing happened like that again, and the captain of the Carpathian, I remember was given an award by Molly Brown for their bravery and everything. Okay, so we'll see you later. Thank you for actually joining. I don't know if anybody else would join, but Sally, you might be my only person joining. I hope not. Because I actually wanted to discuss it with more people. Hey, spread it around if you can before you leave. Get rid of my notifications. I hate so many flipping notifications on my phone. And I don't know if I can share this without interrupting the broadcast. Oh, apparently I can. Okay, sadly, it won't let me share to Amino. Ah. Oh, I hope that didn't interrupt my broadcast. I think that interrupted my broadcast. Okay, sorry about that. I was trying to see if I could share it, but apparently it wouldn't let me share anything. So I may end up stopping the broadcast right here just to probably draw in more people, see if I can draw in more people. And then I'll start the broadcast back up if anybody's interested. So, if I can get more people, part 2 of the live stream will be up in a little bit. So, for now, I've been seeing ya.